afterwards. All right, cool. Well, welcome everyone. Who here is here for the first time? First V1 Weekly. Awesome. Good to see you guys. Welcome. So this is going to be a new series that we're doing. We started last week called V1 Weekly. Our goal for V1 Weekly is to host talented speakers from across campus and give you the resources to build. V1 has always been about kind of initiatives when it comes to building. V1 Startup Fair, if you guys went to that. V1 Connect, where we share our plans for and our initiatives for connecting people across campus. This is going to be our recurring format to keep people engaged with each other in an in-person experience, and also to give you guys really talented people to learn from on campus and to share that knowledge with the community. So this is an ongoing recurring format. All the content will be uploaded live on our website. Stay tuned for that. You'll be able to see these recordings and learn from these people asynchronously if you want to. And we're also debuting a new way to stay involved with the community through becoming a member. We'll talk more about that after the presentation. So let's move into our speaker today, Elliot. So Elliot is a very talented person. He has worked at some really high growth startups in some really exciting sectors of tech. He's worked at Ramp, unicorn startup with $8 billion valuation right now. Worked at Glint Solar, another really, really cool startup, and Tour.video, which came out of Y Combinator. So we're really excited to learn from him today about how he finds startup opportunities that are really interesting to him, that drive high value, and that allow for really cool innovation. So I'll turn it over to Elliot now, and yeah, give him a big round of applause.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Trey, for the very generous introduction. And thank you all for coming out. It's super cool to see everybody here. It's been quite a while since I've seen a lot of you, so it's super cool to see everybody. So just to get started, a little bit about me. I'm a senior studying CS here. I'm from Heartland, like an hour straight north of Michigan, or straight north of Ann Arbor. I do a lot of engineering, and I do a lot of the engineering work, and I help out with Startup Fair here at V1. In my free time, I love hiking, biking, taking public transit, that sort of thing. Yeah, so just to get started, let's talking a little bit more about like why do I enjoy working at startups? Like, how did I get into them in the first place? So freshman year, right that summer, I worked at a kind of stereotypical big company. I knew it was good for like learning the technical fundamentals. It was very chill. There was not that much pressure, but I just felt like there wasn't that much happening. I had very little ownership, very little autonomy. It was like everything was very supervised. I had no interactions with any customers during like all of my time there. I worked only with my manager, who was great. My manager was awesome, but it just felt like there just wasn't that much happening. There was very low product velocity. Things would actually take years to ship. The culture was a little meh. So it was just like, after that I felt like, okay, what is there something else out there? So sophomore year I started looking around at some smaller companies. And then since then I've had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things. I built 2 MVPs for a startup's like flagship product line. I got to like build them from scratch, demo them to customers for the first time, and then continue to iterate on those over the next few months, and then have other developers join the team and work on those too. Like that company is still using those the code that I started with. Like that's extremely cool, and they've continued to scale those products to like dozens of customers now, which is really cool. I got paid twice to learn web development, which was very cool. I worked with and learned from some incredible people. Many of them are in this room today. But people like Ramp's youngest senior software engineer, my age actually. People who have like made and lost millions trading crypto. Multiple like global programming championship. Lots of like former quant traders, senior engineers at Fang. The guy who built most of Text.com, if anybody's familiar with that. One of the main engineers on some really cool, very high-value NFT projects It's like a lot of really cool people. And the common thread between all of them is that they're all like super engaged, super skilled, like super just happy to be working on like cool projects with cool people, and everybody's just super supportive. I felt like so many of the people, like the vast majority of the people I met, are like very invested in helping me out too, however they can, which is super cool. It's just an amazing community to be a part of. Moving on, I also helped. I was able to own a lot of the user-facing products for a YC startup, which we'll talk about in a minute. I helped host V1 Startup Fair, which you'll hear about more later. We had 17 high-growth startups here in Ann Arbor last winter. More than 400 students and over 20 offers. That was super cool. We're going to do that again later this semester, so stay tuned. I lived and worked in New York for a summer. I broke production twice at Ramp. I got free lunch and like an infinite supply of Clif Bars, also at Ramp. That was great. I worked from my bedroom in Heartland, New York, Miami, San Francisco, LA, Denver, Virginia. There's all sorts of really cool places. Also got to hang out in the Redwoods with a bunch of tech people for a weekend. None of this stuff would have been possible if I had stayed at a bigger company. It's just like there's not that much like dynamism there. It's if I had like gone back to the company I worked at freshman year, like I don't know where I would be right now, but I know I would not be in this room, and I feel like I would have missed out on a lot of growth opportunities. Just a couple of highlights here, like I got to go to Miami with Ramp. We got to host Startup Fair here on the bottom left. Got to just meet a lot of really cool people, spending lots of late nights in the office. Another Startup Fair picture up there, hanging out with like the whole Ramp engineering team. Yeah, there's so many really cool experiences that I just don't think you could get this at a bigger company. So circling back to freshman year, I had like coming out of high school, I had like zero real work experience. I had like, done a couple personal projects, but nothing super cool. But I sort of stumbled into working at a bigger company. I just got lucky after applying online. I think the thing that helped there was that I was able to talk about what I had learned from some of those personal projects. You know, they've got maybe 20 downloads on the Google Play Store, but like I still learned something, and I was able to talk about that. And so Maxter was a good place to start. Like I learned a lot of like fundamental technical stuff that you just don't pick up doing personal projects on your own. And I also just had something to put on my resume, which I think helped a lot the next year. But after that, I was still looking for a little more. Some takeaways from my time in freshman year, like go to the career fairs. I did not get anything out of the career fairs that year, but it was still a great way to practice talking to recruiters, talking about myself, and just getting started, just getting my foot in the door for a lot of these places. Even maybe I can come back next year and the recruiters will remember me. We'll see. There's very little downside, and there's potentially a whole lot of upside. And also, personal projects go a really long way. Even if the projects themselves don't do very well, just being able to talk about them I think that's huge. So after thinking for a while about some of the cons of working at a big company that we talked about a minute ago, sophomore year I did a lot of online applications. If anybody's wondering, this is what 100 online applications and about 300 companies looks like. You can see I made it somewhere around here on the list. This is this is like the first half of the spreadsheet, and this is the second half. So this is like over 100 online applications and very few responses. So the response rate was not great. And I look back on this and I think this is probably not a good way to spend my time. So after sending out a lot of these online applications and not really hearing anything back, I started cold emailing startups. So I just found emails online, which we'll talk about in a minute. I found a nice cold email template that I liked, and the response rate on that was just so much better. I talked to a few Y Combinator startups, a couple of international ones, including Glint Solar, which is where I ultimately ended up working. I took a gap semester because this was during COVID, and worked full-time for them for the winter and the summer, which was really fun. And then I also started working at Tour.video. At the time, it was known as Lease Magnets. I actually got connected with them through the first iteration of V1, which was, at the time was a newsletter connecting students with project opportunities. So Amelia from Tour.video is actually here. Feel free to say hi to him after. Super cool guy. It was a blast working with him. So I was working at Tour.video for a while, for a couple months before I started interviewing for Glint. I had just enough React experience to get in the door at Glint. And I was up front, like I told them, okay, I don't have that much React experience, but I'd love to learn, and they were okay with that, which was huge. I was building a lot of this stuff from scratch, so I was able to grow as the projects grew in complexity. And they were and Glint was okay with me learning on the fly, which was huge. So yeah, some takeaways, cold emails work, but having a little bit of experience helped. I think had I been sending these cold emails freshman year, I'm not sure it would have worked as well without having something on my resume. And yeah, startups are okay with learning on the fly if you frame it in the right way and you demonstrate that, hey, I can learn. That was something that Glint was particularly interested in. So some other takeaways from that year, like I got paid to learn web dev twice, which was really great, and that skill has like served me really well since. I got to learn a lot about doing effective code review, whether that was like from the more senior people at Glint or working with other students at Tour.video. I had the chance to get a lot of review and do a lot of review. That was really useful, which is useful at any size of a company. Also about scaling engineering teams. Glint and Tour.video both grew a lot while I was there. So learning about how do you like effectively onboard people, what level of documentation do you need, that sort of thing. Those were really useful. And also making effective trade-offs. When you're a really small company, the philosophy, especially at Glint, was like, it doesn't matter if we pull all of the data in the database right now, because that will never scale to 1,000 customers and many thousands of users. But by the time that becomes an issue, we'll probably be doing this differently anyway. So just learning to make those intentional trade-offs with the idea that, yeah, this will never scale, but it will never get to a point where scale is a problem. That sort of thing can really, I think, accelerate the speed at which you can get product out the door, which is critical at a really early stage. All right. So yeah, if anyone wants to see the spreadsheet later, I'm happy to share. Can we talk at the end? Yes. So junior year, I found Ramp via Contrary Capital. Contrary had a startup fair in July. I almost didn't go to this because I was like, it's in July. I didn't expect to get anything out of it. But I kept talking with Ramp after, and they were. I thought this would be a super cool opportunity. I had seen somebody working at Ramp all summer and having a great time. So I'm really glad I went to that startup fair because I think just starting early and like saying yes, even going to things, even if the outcome like isn't entirely clear, that sort of mindset can be super helpful, especially with startups where it's just like very small and seemingly random things can have very big impacts later on. So I found Ramp, had an awesome time working with them this past summer. Some of the things that came up a lot, like writing cleaner, more readable code. Just thinking very clearly about not what does this code do, but how is it going to read in 6 months when I don't remember. When I'm looking at this, and I'm like, wait, what idiot wrote this? And then I realized it was me. So thinking about like very intentionally about the structure of your code. Building and maintaining stuff at scale. This is by far the biggest company I'd worked at, and there's just so much going on at Ramp, and constantly and breaking a lot of the time as it grew. I got to do some production engineering stuff too, so resolving incidents in real time. It was very fun. Ramp was also really good about making intentional engineering trade-offs, which I really liked. So I got to build on that sort of thing from Glint. I also get to work with actual design and product teams, which I had never done before. Like, they have people that only do design there, and they have people that only do product stuff there. Compared to like Glint and Tour.video, it's just everybody does everything, which is great, and you can learn a lot through that. But working with really experienced designers and product people can be, I think that's also super valuable if you have the chance. All right, so talking a little bit about finding startups. So there are a lot of different. I've tried all of these ways, almost all of these ways at some point. I'm sure many of you have attended the career fair at some point. I would love to hear what some of your thoughts are on that. I've gone a couple of times. I've never gotten that much out of it, but it's mostly larger companies that I'm not super interested in, right? So I didn't go this year. I didn't really go last year. But did anybody have a chance to go to Startup Fair last year? Awesome. Okay, yeah. So we're doing that again this year. I would totally recommend that all of you check it out. I think we had some awesome companies last year. We got a lot of people got offers through that, and I think we're gonna try to double that this time around. So if you're not going to the university career fair, check out Startup Fair. You can also apply online for that's mostly for bigger companies, but once you start to hit like Series B or C, a lot of startups will tend to have a more big tech like application process. I think that's fine to do in moderation, but as you can see, it did not work well for me sophomore year. So I'm a little more hesitant about sending out just dozens and dozens of applications. I think if you can do it in a little more targeted way, that would be great. You can also try scraping LinkedIn. If anyone wants to talk about this, let me know. I have tried this with mixed results, just like looking for a particular profile of a founder, like someone who's worked at big tech and is now starting their own thing, stuff like that. Again, mixed results so far. But I think the biggest thing is cold emails. I'll show some templates in just a second, but being able to write like a really short email, just saying, hey, here's who I am, this is what I've done. I think what you're building is super cool, and I'd love to talk to you more about it. That can be like so many of these small startups, like they don't really get that much inbound interest, so they're really almost happy to talk to anybody. So just getting your foot in the door and getting that initial call can be huge. That was how I connected with Glint, and yeah, that was a phenomenal experience. And this time around, that's how I've connected with most of the companies I'm talking to now. Also through V1, there are a lot of people in this room. A lot of them have their own projects that they're working on. Especially if you're just getting started in your career, a lot of them I'm sure would love to talk to you. Like I said, that was how I found Tour.video, and that was huge because that got me in the door at Glint, and I just learned so much even after that too. Also, networking, just the people you meet on campus or online or during the summer. Just keeping in touch with them and trying to be a little more intentional about it. Asking them, hey, what are you excited about right now? What are the companies that you're talking to? Anything cool that you've seen lately? It doesn't have to be quite as artificial as that. Usually this sort of thing comes about naturally because this is all startup people ever talk about. But you can find a lot of really cool companies through the people that you know or the people that they know. So like the first or second degree people that you know can be huge. And then getting introduced by somebody who knows the founder that's so much more effective than like a cold email or applying online. There are also lots of student startups at Michigan. So like Tour.video is one. I know there are many others. I'm sure the V1 I think is a great place to find those. There are also lots of fellowship programs. So there's a whole lot of fellowship programs. There's Contrary, there's Neo, there's Dorm Room Fund. I'm told that applications closed today. Talk to Daniel if you're interested. What else? There's 8VC, Kleiner Perkins. There's a bunch of them. I initially connected with Ramp through Contrary Startup Fair, and that's been that was huge. And generally they just provide a great community of people who are also interested in startups and might have connections that can be useful. A lot of just very interesting opportunities come through those Slack groups and discussion groups. You can also email investors, ask which portfolio companies they're interested in. I've had pretty good luck with it this time around, and I've made a couple of connections through an investor that one of my friends was connected to. But VCs are generally happy to connect you with their portfolio companies if you can convince them that you would be a useful person for them to talk to, because they're always looking to provide value to their portfolio companies. So if you can convince them of that, then it's usually pretty easy to get an introduction to some of their companies. You can also find a lot of startups on Twitter. Usually when somebody leaves their current job, they will tweet, "I am building something new. Stay tuned." I'm not on Twitter. I have never been able to convince myself that I would get more value out of it than distraction. But I know there are lots of people who have done really well with Twitter, like Ask Samay, if you want to talk about Twitter more. Ask Will too. Is Will here? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, there are lots of other people. I think Twitter could be super useful, and I have considered getting on it, but and so I think there might be a trade-off there. Yeah, so talking about cold emails, this was the email I sent to Glint, gosh, almost 2 years ago now. And so you can see it's pretty straightforward. Just here's who I am, here's how I found Glint, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I've done, can we talk? In hindsight, this middle paragraph here is kind of a big block of text. It's kind of hard to read. I think I've gotten lazier in the past 2 years, so maybe I wouldn't want to read that now. But I think this is the email I sent around to a couple of companies, and it did all right sophomore year. This is what I'm using now this fall. It again follows a pretty similar structure. Like, here's how I found about this company. Here's why I think what you're doing is cool. Here's what I am. Here's what I've done, and can we talk? I like the bulleted list a little more. I feel like it's easier on the eyes. But I also should note that the actual content matters a lot more than how you format this or how you organize this. You don't want to spend too much time micro-optimizing these. Yeah, this is what I've been using this year, and it's been working pretty well. I'm happy to share these later too if anybody's curious. So yeah, now that you've found a bunch of startups you've made, you've put them in a spreadsheet like I have, and you're starting to think about, okay, how do I connect with these, and how do I convince them that I would add value to their team? In my experience, most startups don't really care about algorithm style or leak code questions, especially at the early stage. All they care about is can this person especially as an early stage founder, can this person make my life easier? Can they take work off my plate? Ideally with very little supervision. So I think part of convincing them of that is showing that you can learn on your own, showing that you can own things from 0 to 1, and just generally making their lives easier, and being able to do a lot of that largely unsupervised. You can spend most of the day on your own. You don't need to have your hand held through a lot of these things. You ask questions and you ask for help when you need it, but for the most part, you can figure a lot of things out on your own, or you know when to ask for help. This was a lot when I was talking to Glint for the first time. I was really trying to. They focused a lot on velocity of learning. That was something they were looking for. They didn't care that I didn't really know web development, but I showed them that I could learn during the interview process. I picked up I tried a couple of new technologies during that, and they were okay. So they were okay with me learning React on the fly, basically. Also, being able to own things from 0 to 1, whether that was at Tour.video or at Glint, being able to take a spec, build an MVP, and then own that. I think that's huge. Yeah, just generally trying to convince founders that you can provide value on your own. One way you might do that is showing off your past projects, saying here's what I did. It doesn't, maybe if the results are good, mention the results, hey, I got this hundreds, thousands of downloads, but even if that didn't happen, you can kind of gloss over that. That's what I've done, and just say, this is what I learned from this experience. This is what I'd do differently next time. I think that sort of learning is what is what founders are more interested in hearing. Practicing common interview questions, very, very basic. Tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in this company? That sort of thing. You don't need to. In my experience, startups generally don't do too many behavioral questions. It's generally pretty straightforward and focused on mostly the application side of software engineering. Asking really thoughtful questions, I think, can be huge, especially if you're trying to convince a company that you're really interested in them. Asking about how do you align incentives with your customers here? What does your business model look like here, and what are some things that you're worried about? That sort of thing, and just generally showing that you've thought critically about the products and the business that they're trying to build. I think that's a great way of showing how interested you are, and also the level of thought you could bring to the team. That's something that I've always tried to do. I have for each company I'm talking to, I have a really long list of questions. And I think that's something that founders have really appreciated when I've talked to them in the past. Just being able to, even if you just ask, because founders love talking about what they're building, right? And they will often talk for a long time. But being able to, if you can get them started and show that you're really interested in what they're building, I think that's huge. So you found them, you've pitched them, and now you're starting to talk about, okay, is this somewhere I'd actually want to join? A lot of this criteria is more relevant for early stage startups. I think once you get to like Series B, C, D, where the team is really starting to grow really fast and the business model is a little bit proven, it's maybe not as relevant. But for really small companies, like you want to like think about the team. Like, do you feel like you would learn a lot from them? Like, what are you optimizing for learning here? Are you optimized for the company doing really well and you hopefully making a lot of money? One very good heuristic is like, can they hire people who are smarter than them? Can they convince really smart people that this business is going to do well enough that this very smart person should join them? I think that's a very good heuristic. Ideally, if the team had done this before, that's also a good signal. If they founded something, and even if it didn't work out, like ask them what went wrong, what would they do differently. Like, as long as they've thought critically about that experience, I think that can be really good. Looking at the product, like, is there a real demand for this product? Have they found product market fit? Do they have a clear, like, focused, well-defined roadmap for how they're actually going to take this product from whatever MVP or mock-up in Figma they have to actually, like, getting that out to customers? Or is it just kind of pivoting on a dime, whatever comes into their head, that sort of thing? Are they focused on customers? Do they have customers? Are they actually talking to them? One thing I really liked about Glint was that they designed most of their products like in consultation with their customers. They had like 1 or 2 beta customers, and they just built the whole product with them basically. So they knew that even at the end of this process, there will be somebody who wants this. Also, like learning, like what are you going to learn from joining this company? Are they gonna will you just learn from the team? Are they experienced enough that they can tell you that they can really provide a lot of mentorship? Or even if not, like even if you're working with a bunch of students, like is the company going to grow fast enough that what you'll learn during that growth might be sort of similar to having mentorship from experienced engineers? This is something to think about. Like, is that something could you take advantage of that growth almost as if you were working with more experienced engineers? Similarly, like if there's a lot of stuff you can own at the company, is that do you feel like would you also learn a lot there, even if the team isn't super experienced? Also, like looking at the investors they have, any funding they've received, that can be a very good signal. Like they've been able to convince investors who see hundreds of these pitches every year that they might succeed. But one thing to consider is that like VCs look for very unnatural growth and their return on their investment, and VCs also expect most of their investments to fail. And they, I think, are very much thinking about that when they're making these investments. It's like this is either going to be a $100 billion company or it's going to go to zero. Like VCs are very much there's no real in between there for at least on the risk profile for a VC. So it's something to think about. If you can also talk to their investors, that can also be a great way to get some more signal as to whether or not this is somewhere you want to join. A couple of resources here at Michigan and beyond for finding startups. So Startup Fair, we'll be hosting that again pretty soon. Stay tuned. V1 has like a lot of great people, whether they're working on their own thing or they're working for someone else on their own thing, or they just know other people who might be able to connect you. Like there are so many cool people in this room. I would encourage you to like stick around after and talk to them. There's a lot of great lists out there for finding other startups. So Contrary runs Startup Search, YC runs Work at a Startup, Antler, which is one of Glint's investors, they have their own jobs board. Also, like send these out. We'll send the slides out after too if people want to look at these resources. Lots of fellowships, like I mentioned. Those can be great ways to find other opportunities and other like-minded people. Pramp is like an interview practice site. So you can do live interview practice with other people. That can be much more effective than like practicing technical questions or behavioral questions on your own. Actually having somebody to interview with can be really helpful. Nate is a guy who dropped out of Michigan a few years ago. Super cool guy. He's worked at a couple of startups, including Ramp. And he's a really great writer. He's had a lot of cool experiences that I found his blog really helpful. I actually based my cold email template off of his. I'll share those cold email templates that I used earlier. Also, please feel free to ask me if there's anything you want to talk about or anything I might be able to help with. We would love to talk. Like, you got my email and there's my phone number too. But yeah, would love to hear what you guys are working on or what you're thinking about. Please do let me know if there's anything I can help with. Yeah, on that note, thank you all for coming out. Yeah. Awesome. So if anybody has any questions now, we'd love to answer any, or we can talk after too. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll send those out after. Maybe we'll put them on the calendar invite or something.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. Elliot, first of all, it's been absolutely great working with you. Now, we have changed something. A lot of your code has scaled, so we've iterated as things grown, but we really appreciate you. You've done a lot of things that he mentioned about taking ownership of the code as your own. And Elliot demonstrated kind of from week one. So I really appreciate those characteristics. The other thing I'll say to you that's interesting is when Elliot joined and we were talking about lease magnets, where we got connected, I think Same helped to do that connection, but it was completely there was no expectations. It was just we were building something that was interesting. We had some customers locally, and there was no YC. There was no even we went to decide. There was like we just not decide with the Michigan Business Challenge. We had not run into those things. It was just a startup building something cool on campus. And you have no idea for any builder in this room. If you're just a builder or you're looking to work with a startup, you have no idea how one conversation can lead to the next, right? And if you think that where you are, where you're sitting right now, and literally 8, 12 months later, you could be either working in a YC company or be the YC company yourself, it's kind of nuts, right? And so that's one thing I would encourage this room and Elliot. I'm sure you see a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Yeah, that's a great point. Like if I had not reached out to Lease Magnets through V1, like I don't know where I would be. There's just like a lot of small things that set you on a path and it all really compounds to like I started learning something at Tour.video. I kept learning that at Glint. I was able to build on that at Ramp. Like it's really just small things compound really fast, and so that's been really cool to see over the past few years.
Is the process if you're recruiting for like non-technical roles like design and PM very similar? How would you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I know I focused a little bit on the engineering side here. Yeah, I think it's generally pretty similar. I would even lean more into the idea like taking work off the founder's plate. Even at like just a small startup, there can be a lot of like operational things to do, whether it's like helping with hiring or talking to customers, doing marketing, trying to grow and get the word out. I think that interview process would be pretty similar. And I think the pitch that you're making to the founders is also pretty similar too. You're just convincing them that I can take work off your plate. I can learn and do things and add value on my own. I want to learn from you. That's why I'm reaching out. But I will also be able to take work off your plate in exchange. Toby?
Do you have to make a lot of compromises in terms of compensation or work-life balance?
Oh, that's a great question. So first few years, compensation was pretty low. Like Glint and like compared to like like coastal like New York's SF compensation, around here it's a bit smaller. But like not anymore. Once you start working at like companies that are generally based like outside of Michigan, you can find the compensation is pretty much equal or significantly better than what you would find at big tech in a lot of roles. At least that's been my experience. I know in terms of work-life balance, no, I don't think so. I think you can at an early stage startup if you were working full time or like founding something. I think definitely, but as an employee or as an intern so far, or at like a much later stage startup, I think you can have a pretty well-defined work life and a pretty well-defined personal life. That's been my experience. You can invest however much of your time you want into work too, though. I think you can get a lot more out of it if you put more in.
Do a lot of startups look for like full-time people or like part-time as well?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to work during the school year?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I've seen a lot of like part-time marketing roles too, like non-technical. I feel like it's hard to be an effective part-time engineer. That's been my experience too. It's frustrating to put like half the time into something when you would really like to be putting all the time into it. And I think that's how founders feel as well. Yeah, I think for more non-technical roles, definitely. Engineering, not so much. It's been my experience at least. Yeah.
How often were you told what to do versus here's the problem, figure out the best way to solve it, and did you have to decide which tool was better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at Glint and Lease Magnets, it was a lot more about here's this feature that we want to build. Let us know how you're going to do it. And so that was a great that was a great learning experience. I just had a lot of autonomy there. I could choose how we were going to do it, how we were going to structure this. I didn't always do that the best way, but you always learn something either way. At Ramp, everything was a little more structured and a little more well defined before I started working on the project, which was great too. There's definitely, I feel like I learned a lot in both ways. But generally at smaller companies, it's a lot more, we don't know how we're going to do this either, so you can figure it out. Which is like that was an amazing way for me to learn stuff too. I feel like I picked up just a lot of random stuff that was really helpful. That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. Ramp was really fun. People were great, and I feel like I still would learn a lot there. The question is is there anything else like even smaller that would be just as exciting, like Ramp 2 or 3 years ago? We'll see. I'm still trying to figure that out. Thank you. Awesome.
I'm John. I'm a senior. Thank you for coming out and talking. My question is, for those people who are watching or in this room that are just like, oh, I want to get a big tech position to have it on my resume, what would you say to like those people?
That's a great point. So if you think you need a big tech job to get other jobs, it certainly helps. There's nothing wrong with that. I think if you want to get a big tech job to get other big tech jobs, that can be very helpful. But I think for startups, working at another startup, especially for early stage startups, working at a much smaller company can be much more. Is a much better signal for another early stage company that you can do well in that environment. I think having Ramp on my resume in a lot of cases is better than having Facebook or Amazon or whatever for the companies I want to work at, just because the environment is much more similar, and a lot of the challenges that they're facing are similar too. Yeah.
Having a big tech company in your resume can help if you're like an actual company you're trying to raise. That can be a pretty good cosign for you. And also, in terms of the size of the startup that you're working on, Ramp is a larger company, but if you're working at smaller size companies, working at big tech ensure that you know how to build at scale versus at a smaller scale. So that's the main trade-off, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. The one point about big tech, Google scale is very, very different from Glint Solar scale. It was, we had 3 customers while I was at Glint. So a lot of you can you definitely pick up on a lot of stuff. I think at a big tech job that it can be very useful at a smaller company, but you want to be careful that you're not over engineering stuff for the scale and the amount of customers that you have, because things change so fast that you don't want to be doing you don't want to be building things more complicated than you have to. Awesome. I know I would love to I want to make sure you guys all have enough time to meet each other too. So I think if anybody else has any other questions, would love to chat after. Feel free to text me or something, or just I'll stick around too. But otherwise, I think Trey, you want to come up and wrap us up? Awesome. Thank you.
And then I just have a few things to talk about with getting more involved as a part of V1. A little closer. All right, so awesome talk. We're going to have more of these, so stay tuned. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about is the next steps for V1. So, sorry, one sec here. So V1 right now is kind of in a transitionary stage. We've had a lot of different initiatives, and now we're trying to do something more recurring. So we're changing the way in which we're going to kind of communicate with you guys and keep you guys connected. We're looking to leverage this community and leverage V1 Weekly to keep people connected and to be aware of our new ideas. So right now we have the V1 website platform, as we call it, and that's how we're keeping you guys connected. We're asking you guys to check in so we can keep tabs on who's coming, who's getting involved, things like that. Before that, we over quarantine, you guys might have known we had a Discord where we could kind of share opportunities, but that was well suited for kind of like a virtual environment. We're looking to do something different now. So we're going to be rolling out a new way to stay connected. Either GroupMe, Slack, something like that. So just wanted to make a note of that. Stay tuned for that, and we'll let you guys know when we have that. So the one thing I wanted to mainly talk about is how you guys, if you guys want to get more involved in V1. So our new biggest initiative is becoming a member, and so it's similar to kind of the cohorts experience. If you guys, if any of you guys were interested in that last year, or if you signed up for a coffee chat, anyone who has used platform before. If you haven't, don't worry, this is totally new and separate from that. What being a member entails is kind of a more exclusive, tight-knit experience with some of the top talent here in V1, and also to kind of get you guys to know each other. So we're going to be giving you guys access to exclusive builder events and social events, access to startup opportunities through our connections, and also through priority access to V1 Startup Fair, which is being posted this November, this fall. So stay tuned for that. And also just giving you a chance to work with some really talented people here on campus and kind of getting you guys connected. Being a member is the best way to do that. So if you want to get involved in that and you're interested, keep coming to these events. That's the way that we're going to kind of reach out to you guys when we see kind of involvement through checking in and kind of, you guys reaching out to us. We will definitely reach out to you guys about becoming a member. And so yeah, definitely scan the QR code after this if you haven't already. That'll let us know that you've been here, and we'll reach out from there if we think you're a good fit, and we will let you guys know from there. So definitely keep coming to these events. And otherwise, if you have something to share with the community, like Elliot did, like Will did last week, and you want to host a talk, definitely let us know. It's in our newsletter. If you guys are signed up for that, we have kind of a speaker interest form to let us know about, a potential talk you'd love to share with us. We'd love to hear what you guys want to share with us. So if you are interested in hosting a talk and sharing something with this community, we'd love to learn from you guys, and we'd love to spread that message. So definitely reach out to us after this, to me, Elliot, anyone, about hosting a talk. And that's it for us. Thanks everyone for coming, and stick around. We have so many talented people here. If you guys want to chat, and yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah.